Hello, everyone. The clip you're about to hear is from one of our exclusive Patreon episodes on a recent horror release, and just like all of our other episodes, it might include major spoilers for said horror release, so don't listen to it if you haven't already seen it. You've officially been warned. And if you'd like to hear the full episode, just head on over to patreon.com/horrorqueers and subscribe today. Without further ado, here is your exclusive Patreon clip.
It's got the gore and the action and the creative depths that we're looking for.
Yes. No, it does have those things, and I would argue it doesn't have much else.
Right?
Or it seems to think it does have a lot of things that it's trying to do, but for me, it doesn't succeed at pretty much any of them. So, just getting this out of the way right away, y'all, I did not care for this movie. I did not like this movie, and I'm actually very sad about this movie.
Well, Trace, I think you're missing the overall thought that this film is about grief, and it's about trauma, and it's about this town healing. Yeah. Folks, I'm being obviously a little facetious because I, too, unfortunately did not overly care for this film. But you know what? We're going to unpack it. We're going to try to be... I don't know. I don't want to say responsible, but we're going to try to be fair to where the film is succeeding, because there are obviously people who quite like this movie.
Yeah, yes, there are. And, okay, I mean, if you are a fan who has been online, specifically on Twitter, actually, no, anywhere, any social media, because I've seen it on Facebook, too, this movie has divided people. Like, I mean, I have seen people going at each other's throats, horror fans going at each other's throats for liking or not liking this movie. And
Yeah.
You know, obviously, you and I can say this, it is okay to not like a movie, it's okay to like a movie, but...
Absolutely.
From both sides of this conversation, and again, y'all, we are recording this the Monday after Halloween Kills comes out, so I mean, like, It's fresh in our minds.
It's fresh everywhere.
It's fresh everywhere, but it seems to be, okay, the side that doesn't like it, if you liked this movie, you have you're not a true fan, or you should expect more from this franchise, and blah, blah, blah. And then from the other side, it's, if I like this movie, if you didn't like it, like, what were you expecting? It was just a dumb fun slasher, blah, 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 blah. But it's becoming, like, personal attacks, like, people are offended when people are disagreeing with their opinion on this movie. And I'm just like, honestly, I got exhausted just looking at this discourse.
Yeah. Definitely seems to have not just riled people's feathers, but also, I think what we're seeing is a bit of a repeat of that Malignant phenomenon that we experienced earlier this year, where when something is so easily publicly available, and even though we're not really starved for horror content, it does seem like this was the thing that people were watching. So everybody had an opinion because everybody had seen it, because it was streaming on Peacock, or, there were enough open theaters people could go and see it. So it really not only dominated the discourse, but yeah, it's a major franchise. The biggest opening for a slasher 3 years ago. This is the sequel, so anticipation has been riding high. We had to wait an extra year for it. It just seemed like everyone has thoughts about this movie.
Very much so. And I mean, we'll get into the box office run of it later, because I mean, it overperformed expectations, which, I mean, as a horror fan, I'm like, oh, that's great. I think that's awesome.
Sure.
Like, yay, horror is doing well. I just wish it was for a movie that I thought was better. I don't even want to use the word, like, deserves the money, because whatever, like, it's a win for horror. Yay. But, yeah, we'll talk about fan service, we'll talk about whatever, but I for me, personally, on a basic filmmaking level of screenwriting, and especially editing, I think this movie is a failure. And I was angry. I went through, like, the 5 stages of grief over the weekend. Because I have a closer relationship to this franchise than you do. But, in our Halloween 2018 episode, we discussed how both of our opinions had kind of, like, softened on it a bit. But I still was like, no, but I still like it.
Right.
I hate that this is the second movie in a row now where I'm like, well, maybe the next one's gonna fix my problems with this one, except the problem is, instead of, I have 2 movies to fix my problems with this one movie, I now have 1 movie to fix my plethora of problems with these 2 movies.
Yeah, and you and I had a big conversation, actually a series of conversations in the lead up to this, because we worried that this film was going to fall into the kind of middle entry in a trilogy like, there's challenges, right?
Yeah.
And you were very adamant that you were worried this was going to be a movie that could not stand on its own. It was going to obviously end on a big old cliffhanger. Everybody knew that part. But the sad reality is that this isn't just a film that acts as the middle part of a trilogy. It's a film that almost doesn't justify its own existence. Like, I spent a lot of this wondering, okay, but does this, it's such a tricky situation. Does some of this need to be here? Or is it that this is just a Blumhouse cash cow, and why do 2 movies when you could have 3? Like, that was what kept going through my head.
And that was the original plan, right? Like, they were originally going to do 2 movies when they were first doing this. When McBride and Green and whatever the fuck, Jeff Bradley were writing the first movie, they wanted to do 2 movies back to back, and then they were like, and by they, I'm sure Blum said this, hey, do 1, we'll see what people react to, and then we'll use that to write 2 sequels for a cash cow if the first one does well enough.
Yeah.
And I was a defender of the first one because I was like, no, I mean, obviously I know it's a business, people want money, blah, 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 blah.
Sure, we've been here before.
Yeah, but their intentions were in the right place. And with Kills, I don't even necessarily think their intentions are in the wrong place. I do think that they think they're doing something that they're not. But it's also very much a... I mean, former guest Lindsay Travis put it very, very correctly in her review, where she was like, this is a movie that is a series of vignettes of kills that is kind of sort of bookended around this mob groupthink statement. And I'm using statement in quotes because, I mean, the movie flat out says, oh, I'm sorry, wait, I have the line when Charles Cypher's Annie Brackett says, oh, he's turned us all into monsters. Thanks, movie. I got it.
Oh, is that your thesis? Okay. Also, congratulations on putting it in there at about the 70-minute mark.
But I do want to be clear, though, and I mean, I'm sure you agree. Like, obviously, when I'm critiquing this movie, when I'm saying, like, I expected better from this movie, I'm not also saying, if you did like this movie, your standards are low and therefore you're an idiot. That is not at all what I'm saying. Honestly, I'm envious of people that really like this movie, and I wish I was in the same court. Like, I don't want to dislike this movie, and I kind of hate the fact that I do.
It was late in the afternoon when the professor and I took our way towards the east, whence I knew Jonathan was coming.
Jonathan Harker has asked me to note this, as he says he is hardly equal to the task, and he wants an exact record kept.
Dear Madam Mina, I have read your husband's so wonderful diary. Strange and terrible as it is true. I will pledge my life on it.
God preserve my sanity, for to this I am reduced. Safety and the assurance of safety are things of the past.
I am in hopes that I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula.
Listen to Regarding Dracula wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us online at bloody.fm.